Another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, October 12th, and we are on the European account. We don't have a ton to do, we just need to play some Paladin cards. While we're playing Paladin cards, we potentially can work our way up to rank 20, which is about as much as I'm caring to try for these days, as far as moving up the rank ladder. Maybe over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, now that they've introduced a rank 50 for new players, maybe we could see rank 20 become a little bit easier, but I don't really see how that would happen, because you can't fall down below rank 25 if you're an older player. You can't get down to rank 50 anyway, so that really only would affect new players. But I guess I can live in hope, can't I? I'm gonna get rid of the card that is not a Paladin card. We've got a lot of news and games to cover, so let's get into it. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Magic Leap wants to avoid a takeover and go public. CEO Ronnie Abovitz believes an IPO would be, quote, the best thing for the creative community. A lot of talk these days about Magic Leap, so they must have done a lot of interviews recently. Either that or GameIndustry.biz is just pushing them for some reason, and I would hope they didn't have some kind of special bias that would cause them to want to promote a company. The United States at the current time is not having a couple of good days in the stock market, so if they were to go out in an IPO, they'd probably sell, if they were to do that today, they'd probably sell not as well as they would like. But I guess that's pretty much all I'll say about that article, since I really don't care. Moving on, we have a GameIndustry.biz article. The Starbreeze CFO, that's Chief Financial Officer, Sebastian Ahiskog, that's Ahiskog, steps down. The former Remedy CFO, Mika Rimney, that's Mikareini, will hold the position temporarily while a permanent replacement is found. So those are some hard names to pronounce. Let's see if there's any real story here. The CFO that's stepping down had been there for 3 years. Let's see. There's something. The commercial failures of Raid World War II prompted Swedish company to raise $30 million through share sale. Trying to see if there's any more story here or not. Yeah, there kind of is no story here. Starbreeze raised $30 million through a share sale. Part of that money is going to be worked, will increase the marketing push of Overkill's The Walking Dead. Question, it would be fishy, certainly, if we started seeing every company that had licensed The Walking Dead go out of, run out of money at the same time and go bankrupt, but I don't think we're at that point yet. Let's see. Guess we attack here. We play this. Guess we do this. We have a game on Steam called In Memory. This is a game that I would arguably say is a low effort name, particularly when you combine it with a low effort description. Step into the memories of a prisoner of war and let the story unfold. VR story rich indie. And it is a soft-ish CG animation, and we're seeing some random things. but I don't see like an actual interface or gameplay. Seems like it's probably just a walking simulator. It's $4.99 with no discount. It requires VR. That's about average for a VR game, even if it's pretty short. And this developer has nothing more. So I would say this game is probably not worth me following because I don't wishlist. I don't wishlist VR games, but it might be worth it to people who are just desperate for VR content. Although you could certainly also make an argument: do you really want to follow a sad, unpleasant story, which is kind of what this is promising, in VR, and be fully immersed for it? Like, if I was gonna watch a movie in VR, I doubt my first pick would be something like Aliens, or definitely not Grave of the Fireflies. I just would not want to be immersed in a highly emotional story. I'd want it to be fiction and action and sci-fi and fun. I wouldn't want to. I'd want something closer to Star Wars, not
reporting for duty.
Like a Vietnam movie or a World War II movie. And then while this game in memory is kind of cartoony in its animation, it still feels a lot darker. I'd probably, if I'm gonna do VR, I'd probably want to watch something like a Disney movie. That would make the best sense. Is do a Finding Nemo or a Cars or a Planes, Frozen. Any of those musicals would make a lot of sense to do in VR. Alright, well that page is not found, so we'll skip that story easily enough. Give the minions taunt. Guess I have to.
For justice.
Looks like I'm gonna win, so I should probably just make sure I play as many Paladin cards. GameIndustry.biz has an article. German regulator warns Outfit 7 and Green Team Games over in-app purchases. Consumer protection body concerned by how studios are targeting minors with microtransactions priced up to £109 and 99 pence. So these two particular games, Outfit 7's My Talking Angels, is a game that appears to target children of primary school age, particularly girls. The title centers around adopting and caring for virtual kittens, where players can progress faster by buying accessories with in-game currency. But the CPA RP has found a single purchase can cost up to £99 and 99 cents, or £109 and 99 pence, depending on operating systems. Let's see, we need to play. Let's go ahead and attack here. Play this. We'll attack this and this.
Reporting for duty.
Attack that. Meanwhile, Green Team Games is under fire for Dog Run, a jump and run game that features £99 and 99 pence purchase. They can be activated with a single click. Wow. A single click and you've spent a ridiculously large amount of money. Yep. I think in this case the German regulator is certainly within the rights to be concerned when you have these games targeted to very young kids for extremely expensive amounts of money. That when, in all honesty, the all kids games should be forbidden from any kind of microtransactions at all. Anything that even looks slightly like a kid's game, you should. The operating systems are probably going to have to get down to the point where they are. You have to put in a specific PIN code every time to install or run games with microtransactions in them at all. It's really just going to come down to something like that.
Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty.
Variety has an article, and Variety would be not a video game website particularly, but more and more we're seeing non-video game websites starting to cover video game news. And generally speaking, I would have assumed Variety is probably a bad news source, but this is an interesting article they have. Nearly half of all, quote, power gamers are parents, and a third are women, says study. Which is a little surprisingly high, but not super surprising. 42% of all power gamers are parents. Tells me that the video games have fully saturated a generation's lifestyle. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of power gamers had kids and then decided they really didn't have a lot of time to play video games, and then they no longer called themselves power gamers. But it depends on whether you're self-identifying or the study had some way of classifying you. Let's see. About 40% of power gamers, it says, are defined as people who play 10 plus hours a week on PC or consoles. Alright, well, if that excludes mobile gamers completely, I guess I could say then that probably includes me as a power gamer. I definitely play more than 10 hours a week just on streaming alone. About 40% of these power gamers are college graduates, and 68% are employed, which that's always a hard thing to do, is to work a job full-time, or, well, it says employed, it doesn't say that they're full-time employed. Women account for 33% of power gamers. We could get those numbers up theoretically to 50%, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are just other social and biological reasons why we're missing 17% there. If women just in general feel more social obligations to go and hang out with friends or date, although if they're dating, they're probably dating a man at that point, and that would balance out. Just go out to social events or take care of children while their father is playing video games. And a lot of it could just be biological too, and some of it certainly could be that some communities certainly are not as welcome to video game players, or perhaps too welcoming to video game female video game players, and it scares them off. And I think over the course of the next generation we'll see that balance out a lot more.
You win this
one. It says 19% of power gamers are Hispanic, and 14% are African American, which wherever this survey was done might actually inherently be a lot higher percentages than the general breakdown of ethnicity. So while those numbers might seem small, if this survey is done in an area where there is actually only 10% of people in general are Hispanic, then that would indicate that twice as many Hispanics in this survey are power gamers compared to a non-Hispanic person. Same is true with the African Americans at 14%. If the survey is for an audience where the people surveyed are African Americans only make up 10% and 14% are power gamers, that's actually means minorities play video games more. And in my experience, just anecdotally, Hispanics and African Americans in general do tend to be more into video games than, I guess, a white guy, to use, for lack of a better term.
Converting stored energy.
Let's see. The next sentence here is, gamers have aspirational life goals, and the study said they're more likely than non-gamers to want to own homes, 75% versus 65%, and they're slightly more likely to want children, 60% versus 56%. Quote, gaming has become a favorite American pastime, and our study identified active gamers across demographics regardless of age, occupation, ethnicity, and income level. Let's see. So more than likely this could be thrown out, to be fair, as a puff piece, and this survey is in some way going to get disputed, or like, I still know people that just actively hate games and would be surprised that they could pull parts of this Variety article out and use it for their own agenda, as much as pro gamer people like me can use it for their own agenda. And to be fair, as I'm scrolling down here, it does seem like the survey was done by Rooster Teeth, which is kind of a questionable group to be doing that, and I'm not 100% sure how your survey would be done, because if you're just randomly asking people, how did you account for people lying about everything? Lying about their gender, lying about their desires, lying about how much they played to try and skew the results. But it's always nice to see even a puff piece in the mainstream media on video games, instead of them constantly getting blamed for everything and anything. I wandered into a live stream where it was a bunch of people on chat were trolling and trying to figure out some way to get Donald Trump to tweet about Gamergate, as if that's something that anybody really should want to have happen. And it's just like, yeah, you can do a lot of things and try and make hay and sling mud, but it's not gonna turn out to be good news. And somebody basically put out that, yeah, remember that there was a school shooting and Donald Trump already blamed video games for that school shooting, so him being on the side of Gamergaters seems unlikely. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Duck Casino Bullet, which looks like Duck Hunt, but I think is probably a low effort asset flip game. Like, it seems like this would be a good game, but no, it's moving kind of slow, and the way it's depicting things, and the fact that you have all these different guns shooting slow flying ducks doesn't make a lot of sense. It's 67 Steam achievements, so you tells me it's an achievement game. It's $1.99. I saw another duck game. Must have been made by a different developer though. Like, yeah, this just does not look like quality. Right now I'm just trying to play a couple of Paladin cards, and then we'll be done and we can move over. Next we have a game called World of Tennis Roaring 20s, which seems like it's a tennis game, but it also seems like it might be just a cell phone game. You look at all that menus and slightly RPG-ish. That's what Mario Tennis certainly did too, is it got into more of an RPG element and less of an actual just you're a tennis player and you're playing tennis. The animation style doesn't look great. It'd be alright if it was a mobile game, and I still get the feeling that it probably was originally. This game is in French, German, English, Spanish, and Russian, and several other languages. Early access, free to play. I kind of feel like there's probably going to be some microtransactions in this game, too. And why the Roaring 20s? Or here's a question. Here's a very valid question to ask. If this is the Roaring 1920s, why is there an African woman on your thumbnail? Because A, mixed genders wouldn't have been a thing, women versus men. In tennis, it still really isn't even a thing to modern days. And definitely desegregation would not have been a thing whatsoever. Like, most country clubs even to this day may still look at minorities funny. Yeah, that's just ignorance there. Like, why set it in the 20s? There really isn't too much difference between playing tennis today and playing it in the 20s. When you get to the professional league, yes, the professionals seem to have slightly different outfits, and the stadiums might look a little bit different, but if you're just playing tennis at a tennis club, not much has changed. Here we have a game that's in English, Japanese, and traditional Chinese, which is odd. It's usually simplified Chinese, called Pan Panda. And this looks like an asset flip from either Japan or China. I would guess China. Look at that, just terrible animation. It looks horrible. Really, really bad. I have no idea what this game really is. Seems like you just run around and hack and slash things, maybe? Yeah, it's free to play. I guess the price is right, but definitely not quality, and the only game from this developer. Although somehow it's still 87% positive reviewed, and I can only assume that that's vote manipulation. I would really like to see more games get higher reviews, or reviewed by more people, so that I can figure out whether there's been vote manipulation or not. Hey, and we made it to rank 20. Did we play enough for the Paladin cards? Yes, we did. I'm taking little pauses in my speech. I think my throat's a little dry today. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm kind of wearing it out too or getting sick. So finally we can make it to the Asian account. We're late, certainly, to the party there. Went down the wrong pipe. Drinking water down the wrong pipe.
Pull up a chair by the hearth.
They did a community spotlight, by the way, Hearthstone did, of Criperian, or they're just calling him Crip, which probably not a good way to shorten his name. Alright. Warrior cards, 2 games with Priest, and 20 turns. I can get at least 2 of those done pretty easily. So, Mech Warrior play, go. So we have a game on Steam, and this one I can't show you. I guess I could show you this much right here, called Ahigal, A-H-E-G-A-L, supposed to reference Ahigo, which is, for those uninformed, as my understanding, it's a Japanese sexual fetish thing they do in animation to do weird contorted faces. So like, I think that's what it is. This game is rated mixed 57% of 21 user reviews, and it is looking like it's a bullet hell shooter game with just anime characters in the background. Yeah, that's kind of all it is. And one would assume stolen anime girl art is not very good. Nor do I think it really is doing a Higo facial. Some of them are sort of trying to do that. But not really seeing a lot of that.
Job's done.
And this one, I think, manages to not actually show any nudity, but it would still be kind of iffy to show this on YouTube, and I want to demonetize a 3-hour long live stream by showing one simple thing.
Job's done.
I could be wrong. A Higo could be the... there's a couple of fetishes out there that are kind of weird. It could be the one where giant women eat you and just fully eat you, consume you whole. Maybe that's it, but I don't think so. I think this is the face one.
The blade be thirsty.
Job's done.
Anyways, this game is in English, Japanese, and simplified Chinese, so I assume it's a low effort Chinese game. It's 40% off for 59 cents. And yeah, it doesn't look like much of a game, and that's why you can see it. It was mixed reviews, having only 21 user reviews, and still, and even at that, people aren't liking it. Let's see. Rush. I guess we'll play it. I'm supposed to be playing warrior cards.
Nice try.
Gamasutra has an article, Get a Job, Ghost of Tsushima. Developer Sucker Punch is seeking an outsourced artist. That's in Bellevue, Washington. I think we've already covered this job listing, but it's coming back. Sometimes job listings have a finish date or a cutoff date, and then they bring them back and say, well, we didn't find any anybody worthy of the position. Right. I'm gonna do this, this, and this. And that. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Sega will shift QA team from UK to Bulgaria. The new Sofia division is to meet the ever-growing needs of the expanding Sega Europe operation. There's a quote here also that this has nothing to do with Brexit. I think it might have something to do with Brexit. Bulgaria, I'm not 100% sure. Might be a little close to Russia. Let's see. Let's look at Bulgaria on a map and see how close it is to Bulgaria, and then Greece and Romania, Ukraine. Yeah, well, the Ukraine is next to Russia, so they'd have to go through Moldova and Romania first. But yeah, it is close to Turkey, if anything. Yep. It's kind of weird. We've got a list of video game companies that seem to be getting dangerously close to Eastern Bloc countries, or totalitarian countries, and away from the UK, which maybe the UK, in the minds of these game companies, has become even less desirable. Also, though, it might just be more expensive, or they might be expecting for it to be more expensive to do business in the UK. Who knows? We'll just have to see how that goes.
Light the fuses!
That didn't do anything because these are all mechs.
Hostile detected.
We have a game on Steam called El Pansis. This sounds like it's a low-effort platformer, possibly saying something racist against Mexican Americans. Yeah. Here we have a Donald Trump enemy, so yeah, this is a troll game, clearly. $4.99 for your stupid troll game. And the developer and the publisher haven't done anything else. It's not even my turn. We're still seeing, I would say, a lot less troll games than we used to. I really do feel like Valve is getting at least half of them filtered out before they even make it to the API and the What's on Steam Twitter feed. But there's still a lot of work that could happen there. It's just a delicate balance between, do you want to delay a legitimate developer's opportunity to sell and release their game at the time they want to, versus do you want to leave the door open that some troll games might just slip through the cracks.
Hostile detected.
Next we have a game on Steam called Dega Madness, DGA Madness. Doesn't look very good from that scene. What is this? It looks like it's a top-down flying game. You can see when you're playing it in single player, you've got a lot of black bars. I assume this is a flying game, and this isn't some kind of tower defense or curling or bowling game. Although if you told me it was a bowling game, I'd kind of believe you. It's hard to even tell what it is, but it's clearly not good. 20% off for $2.39. Just generally, how every single screenshot looks the same gives me a very boring experience with this one continue screen that seems like that's all there is to it. And you can't really expect people to watch your video, particularly when so many of these videos start with a credit scene and that's it. And literally that's all that video was just the credit scene at the end, because the videos that play don't even play right. So it's like a top-down tank driving game for some reason. Let's see. Oh, I'm not sure I have this story, but I did want to mention. People are not happy with the World of Warcraft latest expansion. Particularly, there is a character that is like this self-insert character, or at least he feels like he's a self-insert character that happens to be the boyfriend of a major character, and it seems like they're going to have like every story in the expansion, at least on one side of the expansion. I think if you're playing as the Horde, but maybe it's the Alliance, centers around this one character, and it feels like they've done some dating mining that seems to imply that the next expansion is also going to have more story centered around this character. So yeah, people are just not happy about it. It's a little bit of drama, and probably not too much. I think in general, a lot of it can be just chalked up to people who are tired of World of Warcraft, and this newest expansion did not help with that issue. Next game we have, I won't show, is called Hinta Minesweeper. Again, very low effort name. Although this one is 78% positive with 12 user reviews, so I think at the just generic idea, it probably makes a little bit more sense than some of the other random games that just have anime girls naked shown in the backgrounds. This is what I would call a one-screen Unity game that is not very good. Honestly, it looks like there's only 10 pictures in the entire game to do. 10 achievements, 60 cents, 40% off for 60 cents. No, I don't think so. There's really nothing there that would justify that being worth playing. We already talked about the Assassin's Creed free-to-play mobile game in development, for as much as I care about. Here we go. We have a game on Steam called, I have no idea how you pronounce this, Octane Die Kugel. I don't know what Kugel is. It's Stop the Kugel, whatever Kugel is, and this seems like it's a 3D Snake game. We've been seeing several different variations on 3D Snake games. It doesn't seem very interesting though. It's free, so I guess the price is right on that though. But yeah, very simplistic, lack of polish, not really interesting. A 3D Snake game on a sphere makes some sense as a concept of the game, but I think naming your game after a German, apparently it's a classic German game called Achtung der Curve, so stop the curve, I would assume is what that translates. Makes some, yeah, but you really should have thought of a better name than that, something that's more understandable by more of the world than just the German-speaking audience. Now, right now I probably could get a victory, or I'm hoping to get a victory, but I'm mostly just playing warrior cards. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called God is a Cube, Programming Robotic Cubes. It's an open-ended programming puzzle game, it says. This might not be too bad. A lot of programming games do boil down into the text a little too early, and it often feels like there isn't enough of a game early on to make somebody want to play the game and maybe pick up just the general ideas of programming before you get into some of the more hardcore programming games that actually have you typing code and learning to program. Unfortunately, the graphics don't look very good on this. It's always a little questionable on programming games too about, are they going to make the game well, or are they going to do it poorly? And honestly, this game's name is problematic. It's early access, $14.99, and then there's an advanced pack for $22.48, which includes advanced features. It does not look visually polished enough to justify that, and yeah, that is a problem. That is a big problem. The general concept I'm okay with. It's just the implementation and the name. Like, I could see a lot of parents saying, no, you're not playing a game that says God is a cube. We have a Gamma Sutra article, marketing and session data for Summoner's Fate. For Summoner's Fate at PAX West. This is pretty much just either respouting information that was put in a speech at PAX West, or talking about a speech that is going to come at PAX West. Summoner's Fate, not a game I've heard of, so I think there is a little bit of a level of you not listening to the wrong people, or not listening to people who don't really know what they're talking about. How much would this cost to summon, by the way? 9? Attack. Return this to my hand. And summon.
I dream and the world trembles.
This is a weird article. Crunchyroll has an article. Dead or Alive 6 director Yohei Shimbori talks design philosophy, anime influences, and more. I'm not sure this is 100% super video game related, because it is going to be more in the anime realm. But it's out there if you want to find this Crunchyroll article and read it. Inherently, any Japanese developer of any Japanese game is almost certainly a person who has seen at least some anime. It is so prevalent in Japanese society and been at least partially influenced by it. So, not a real surprise there. What is this? YouTube is promising that by the end of the year, by default, all creators will get the YouTube Studio Beta instead of the old YouTube dashboard, which is a problem, certainly. Definitely a problem, because the YouTube Studio Beta still pretty much doesn't have all the features, and then really no way is better, a better experience. But clearly YouTube does whatever it wants to do regardless of how stupid that thought is, and this is just another example of that. Gamasutra has an article, Postmortem bringing Camouflage's Republic to PlayStation 4. This is basically just a blog article written by the person who created Republic, which is a game I think I want to play but never gets cheap enough to really make sense to play. And bringing it to PS4 doesn't particularly interest me that much. This article, I will have to point out on Gamasutra, is 3 pages long, and almost never on Gamasutra do they put an article longer than one page. So it's gonna be a long one if you do want to read it. TechRaptor has an article, Front Mission spinoff Left Arrive releases March 5th. This is kind of talking about a game that that is coming out. It's a mech themed game spin-off from the Front Mission series. It'll release March 5th on PlayStation 4 and Steam. I assume it's coming out everywhere since TechRaptor is covering it and not just the Japanese only release. We're getting there. We're getting to the point where I'll have all the news covered. Let's see, I need to play a few more mech cards. Gematsu has an article, Darksiders 3 DLC plans announced. The Crucible and the Keepers of the Void. Now, the Crucible in Darksiders 2, at least, if not also Darksiders 1, was just an arena section that honestly I don't think ever needed to exist in the series. An arena fighting section where you go against wave-based enemies. It really does feel like that would be extra work that is not going to be super useful anywhere else, unless there's some way that you can have a pattern of enemies attack somebody in the main game and then copy and paste that pattern and make that a wave in the next game in the Crucible. I guess maybe that would work. Let's see. I'm just gonna end the turn here. Let's see. Keeper of the Voids is, you'll be on a quest from Volcrum. Fury must travel into the Serpent Holes to remove the ancient threat that resides there. The Serpent Holes are riddled with various new puzzles and enemies eager to test Fury's ability. If Fury prevails, she'll unlock a new weapon from the Hollows as well as the biggest prize of them all, the Abysmal Armor. So Fury's story, I believe, takes place kind of before most of the story in Darksiders 1, so she can't really do too much or unlock too many bits of armor or anything. So if she's getting the Abysmal Armor, how does War get the Abysmal Armor later? Nothing here looks too bad. It would have been kind of nice if THQ Nordic had come out and said, our DLC plans for Darksiders 3 is nothing. It doesn't feel like there... In Darksiders 2 there were 3 DLC sections that were just... They felt like entire sections of the main game that had been cut for time. And they were very separate and really had nothing to do with anything. And they were a little disappointing because of that. But... So it doesn't seem like they're going to do that. I guess I'm slightly more optimistic about Darksiders 3 since they've kind of slowed down and they're not overemphasizing things. Although I am still losing a lot of confidence because THQ Nordic is still on an insane licensing and purchasing binge of companies and games. And my fear is still moderately high that Darksiders 3 is going to be this mediocre game that can't possibly live up to the hype that has been made for it, or the anticipation that just actually exists because Darksiders 2 it was so long ago and Darksiders 1 was so long ago. It may very well be that Darksiders 3 is just this middle game that helps the series continue to move forward and ensure that a Darksiders 4 actually happens. There you go. If you have no cards in your hand, deck, or battlefield, you win the game. Yeah, I doubt that will happen.
For me! For Hellscream!
But I'm still looking forward to Darksiders 3, and I still think there is a good potential game that can come out of that. I haven't seen anything that absolutely condemns it. We have a game on Steam called I Love the Money. It looks like it's probably a moderately low effort game, although there's a little bit of polish here. You're running around, you're collecting gold coins, you're fighting each other in this arena battle game.
What now?
It says single player only, so that kind of sucks because then you're just going to be playing against AIs. Yeah, the fact that Russian is the second language listed makes it questionable. To $1.99.
What now?
It says local co-op coming soon. Feels like it's a little bit too much of an asset flip. The only other game they've made is called Strike Force Kitty, which
I must choose.
I might put Strike Force Kitty on the watch list, but I'm not interested in I Love the Money.
For me! I strike.
Yeah, this game Strike Force Kitty looks more interesting than the other one. So yeah, I'll put this game on the wish list and see how this works. 86% positive. I kind of wonder though if it isn't an instance a lot of times where a company makes one good game and then they sell their company name to somebody else and then they make a terrible game. Next game I'm looking at is called Sweet Seasons, which is tagged with nudity and sexual content. It's a bunch of Western style like web animation, pretty bad. Looks like it's a puzzle game of sorts, like the game Blackout, where you have to make all of the squares turn black, and every time you do it, one of these terribly drawn characters loses a bit of their clothing, and it looks like the puzzles might get a little bit harder. But I don't know who's into this. This is like, how many people are into cartoon nudity but aren't into anime art style and would prefer terrible animation styles instead? Like,
What now?
just look here for a second. This is one of the girls. This is one of the girls. That's one of the girls. It's just really bad art styles. So I really don't know who would be into that. Anyway, Sweet Seasons is 10% off for 89 cents, and that's a hard pass for me. It's from the developer of Photo Flash, and so the developer of Photo Flash is actually getting worse in his animation style. It seems like with every game they develop, and they're basically trying to flood the Steam marketplace at this point with 3 games in relatively short amount of time. TechRaptor has an article. European Commission reveals Earthlock 2, Trine 4, and many other independent projects. If you're wondering why the European Commission logo shows up during the startup of some games, it's because it makes contributions to various independent studios to help them get their projects off the ground. This is part of the Creative Europe program, which saw games like Elix 2 get announced last year. The document reveals that Finnish studio Frozenbyte is working on Trine 4, which is odd because Trine 3 was a mess.
I don't need any of you.
It's just... Let's see. Swedish developer Zonk Games is working on something called Roll Them Bones. Zonk is known for the mysterious Fae game and Stick It to the Man. The Spanish studio behind Rhyme is making something called Lumberjack, while there appears to be a throwback 90s RPG Earthlock in production by Snowcastle Games. There's apparently a full list here. While it's nice that the EU is willing to fund game development, although maybe not the EU's business to do that, or support one industry over the other. On the other hand, maybe the EU supports all kinds of art, and if you look at it from, you're not supporting a corporation or industry, you're supporting an artist. I get that. Lots of countries do that. They probably shouldn't leak out the names of the games that they're developing, because that is probably going to hurt the advertisement and the hype train for those games a little bit, now that we kind of know that they're in some level of development. And I don't know what level of recourse there is if somebody says they're in development for a game and then they decide they're going to cease development for that game. I think I've played enough cards here, so we'll just take the victory. Only got a few more games and a few more things to do, although time is up. So we're gonna go along. Warrior class cards. Let's just stick with Warrior. I guess I still am not playing enough Warrior class cards. Gamatsu has an article. Gal Metal launches October 30th in North America and November 2nd in Europe. Gal Metal not being what I would have assumed a tanky game, but instead a heavy metal band being run by girls in some form of a game. I don't know what this... I think it's a music game. Yeah, it's a rhythm game. I would have kind of assumed that this game wasn't coming out to the West just because of licensing issues, but it seems like that's not an issue. The art style here is kind of simplistic and like marker drawn. Even the 3D characters look like they are drawn with a marker or manga style. Let's see, it'll be guess I'll get rid of this one card. Gal Metal will launch for the Switch and nothing else. Interesting. But it is going to have a physical edition, although I don't know if that inherently will change anything. Game Sutra has an article, Redundant Translations in Video Games and Anime. This is an article written by a professional translator, game programmer, and League of Localization founder. Let's see, there's a section here called Explanatory Redundancy, which is an example of, here they're showing Kingdom Hearts where Sora from Kingdom Hearts says Hatoresu, H-A-T-O-R-E-S-U question mark, and then Leon says, quote, those without hearts, which that's explaining what Hatoresu would, I guess, mean. And then when you translate that, apparently the next image is Sora says the heartless question mark, those without hearts. And then there's a section that says multiple solutions, and then there's a section that says idiomatic redundancy. There's an example here that says, somebody's quoted, people die if they are killed. And then another section that's been translated, I couldn't die even if I were killed here.
I don't need any of you.
And then there's another issue, analogous redundancy. A quote here, you're internationally designed, you intentionally designed it with a weak point question mark, versus a translation, it's not a weak point, I like to think of it as a character flaw. People just aren't complete without some type of character flaw, don't you think? Wow. And then there's some other translations here. It's not a weak point, more like a weakness. And then another one, people and weapons just aren't very appealing without the weakness of some kind, don't you think?
What now?
Not sure this is really an article worth going all the way through. But certainly, as a person who was at least at one time a fan of anime, things getting translated in different ways was always up for debate and complaining. There's a paragraph here that says different views of redundancy, and then there's a paragraph that says redundancy everywhere. Like, here's a quote, when you have a birthday, you celebrate being born. Death Note, directly translated, a notebook of death. So this is the power of the power. Destruction and alteration, the power to destroy and the power to alter. A medical student, that's a student who studies medicine. Like, okay. So clearly there have been some bad translations out there. Undoubtedly. For video games and anime. A lot of it really boils down to a lack of understanding English by a Japanese to English translator, or a lack of understanding the nuances of Japanese. It's kind of I was thinking, if I was ever to have to take a meeting with somebody of a different language, I probably would want to hire a translator, assuming I could afford it, that translated everything I said, have one of them translate everything I say into English, while have the other one be an expert to translate everything I say into the other language, and then they can fight it out if they are translating things differently. But that would stop a potential instance in which you have one translator and you have to stop the conversation and ask the translator what he means, or have the translator act as a middleman. It really could speed up a meeting if you have to do something like that.
Another concoction.
Alright, moving on, we have a game on Steam called Stardust VR. It probably isn't much. It's well, that's actually surprisingly pretty looking. Is it a game though, or is this just an animated skybox? Because this to me looks like it's probably an animated skybox or two, and that's about it. Let's see. I'll come over here and watch the trailer video. No, it looks like it's, for the most part, it's got some creatures that are flying around, but this is really just an animated skybox with nothing in it. As far as gameplay, early access, 15% off for $7.64. This is an easily skipped game. And you're shooting things for what reason? Interesting. Next we have a game on Steam called The Pixel Shield, which is a top-down twin-stick shooter. We've seen a lot of these games, none of them ever looked very good, although I would argue that at least that video looked like you were moving pretty fast. But looking at all these other screenshots, it just doesn't have any kind of visual appeal or polish. 15% off for 64 cents or 84 cents. Can't even read it and don't even care to double check. So we'll close that. Next we have the game The Light Keeps Us Safe. I believe we've seen that this game has some interest behind it and some big developers behind it, so it's mostly positive, 78% to 14 user reviews to start off with. I'm not 100% sold on this game. It does still feel like it's a dark screenshot syndrome style of game, but it's running around a spooky, dark, War of the Worlds-esque experience, which is something, certainly. This developer, let's see, did Sorry You're Being Hunted and The Signal from Tova, which are slightly recognizable names, so I'll put this on my wish list and keep an eye on it. Let's don't really have a ton of games that are going to make it to the wish list. Next game we have on Steam is called Anime Babes Solitaire, early access sexual content, so I'm gonna end it there. But I did want to quickly point out, here we have a colored pencil style, art style. It's not terribly bad, but it's very inconsistent. Like, this art style and this art style and this art style are all slightly askew and not the same, not connected enough. And all this is free cell and other solitaire things, and as I'm looking more and more, it seems like all the art styles are very varied, probably because the art is all stolen. And so each card has an anime girl on it. Yeah, this is clearly stolen artwork because I even recognize some of the characters from anime. Most of them are in their underwear, and that's kind of it. So I don't even think that there's nudity really to go here. It might have... it has Klondike and Free Cell, so as a card game, it's doing a little bit better than most.
Light the fuses!
Job's done.
It has one achievement. It's in English only. Early access, 15% off for $3.39. That's really, really high. I wouldn't mind if somebody did develop a card game interface where you could buy DLC or upload your own images. Ideally, I guess you'd want to upload your own images and not pay for DLC. And then you could do something like this if you so chose. But it's a big difference between somebody saying, I'm going to steal a bunch of images off websites and use them as cards for my own personal use, versus somebody on Steam saying, they're going to steal other people's art and then sell it on Steam. That's a pretty big difference. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Vera Swings, which looks like it's a way too simplistic physics game. Has just a sentence of description about the story.
You cannot escape the shadow.
I could kind of see that this would be like a getting over it with Benet Foddy style of game. But it'd probably get very boring very fast. It has one achievement. It's asking $11.99 right now with 20% off. That's ridiculously expensive for some very generic visuals here. It needs more polish and a better look, if that's what it's going to do. This is also an example of a game that's making a female protagonist for what does not seem like much of an artistic reason, since look at her, you can barely even see her. Could be anything.
The blade be thirsty.
Truth is my shield.
Let's see, we have a game on Steam called the Juggernauts. It says it's a runner. It certainly doesn't look like it's a very fast running game for a runner. You have to switch between different colors, which, yeah, that does not make the runners feel like it's more fun to me.
Light the fuses!
Yeah. Well, this does have a slight artistic style to it, and it doesn't look like it's a bad effort on animating things.
Light the fuses!
The general gameplay mechanic feels a little too frustrating, a little too much grind. The whole gameplay looks a little slow. Probably has to be slow just to keep people playing. Single, multiplayer, 26 achievements, 20% off for $11.99. Again, $11.99, not the price I would be willing to pay for a runner game in general. Maybe I'd go $5 for a runner game if it was really, really good. But for the most part, I'm not even sure I'd go that far. So I'm gonna close Juggernauts, although it is pretty. It's the first game from this developer too. Let's see. Next we have a game called Gravity Spin. Gravity Spin is a Metroidvania with a little spin. It looks pretty bad here. Like, really, really bad. And the idea of jumping up and being able to spin the world is slightly interesting, but it probably inherently limits how big any one section of the map can be. And it seems like at some point you'll freeze time as well as spin. it just isn't visually appealing as a game. 15% off for $5.94. If this had better visual polish and didn't look like what it looks like, just NES graphics, I might be more interested in it. This is from a developer who's made 2 other games that haven't gotten enough reviews to even be mentioned. So yeah, I'll close that tab. Only a couple more games to cover. Next game we have on Steam is called The Captives Plot of the Demiurge. D-M-I-U-R-G-E. This looks immediately polished and drawn well. This not so much. This might be an RPG that isn't an RPG maker. It's a 3D game. I'm not inherently liking the simplistic UI or the simplistic art style here. But there might be a game here. There actually might be something worth playing. Let's see, lots of different faces, and probably not necessary. Those faces certainly could be asset flips. In fact, a lot of this could be asset flips that have just been done with more care and polish to actually look like they should be in the same area. This feels like it might just be a dungeon crawler game, but I'm not 100% ready to eliminate it. $15.99, that's expensive, certainly. This developer made Portal Stories VR and Portal Stories Mail, and that was a game I wanted to cover. So for that reason alone, that elevates this game to my wish list, because Portal Stories Mail was probably one of the best mods for Portal, and I definitely did want to cover it at some point. TechRaptor has an article, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the Forge DLC announced in hands-on impression. I would have to say that skipping the rest of this article because I really don't care about their hands-on impressions. Seems like the Forge includes a score attack and time attack modes, which that's stuff that I certainly didn't appreciate in Rise of the Tomb Raiders. These weird extra gameplay modes. The Forge will be available November 13th for $4.99, or you can buy the season pass for $29.99. But on a bigger topic, Shadow of the Tomb Raider has really just come and gone. Like, people have forgotten it pretty easily, which is fine by me. Ideally, a new trilogy is started and a new Tomb Raider is introduced, someone who is a little bit closer in feeling to the original Tomb Raider while maintaining some of the realistic visual appeal of the new Tomb Raider character. Let's see. Next we have a game called The Missing J.J. Macfield and the Island of Memories. This is 100% positive and 19 user reviews, which is slightly suspicious. It's an action-adventure puzzle platformer. Ah, this is the sweary game. The Missing Sweary game. I did not realize it had such a long title. So clearly this is going to go on my wish list. I did not realize it was out. Like, any swear games. $29.99 though is a lot of money to ask for a game that I imagine is not super long. Because this really is, I think, mostly walking from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen, solving some puzzles, and getting some storyline. I'm not sure you're gonna do much more than possibly jump in the game. I doubt you're going to. You're gonna get a weapon and fight. Next game we have on Steam is called Helium Rain, and it looks like a space game, and space games in general don't interest me, although that is nicely visually appealing. And unlike most space games, you're not overwhelmed with a UI all over the place. It seems like it's mostly keeping it under control. This might be more of a space sim strategy game than a fighting around, flying around and fighting people. Often those are the same gameplay mechanics. Both gameplay mechanics are available in space games. This one looks pretty. If you like space resource sims, which is what I guess this is, you might want to check this one out. It's $14.99. Me personally, it's just not the kind of game for me. Finally, I have gotten the Warrior class cards done. Let's see, my other daily quest is to win 2 games with a priest. So unless I was to really quickly get victories with the control priest, I doubt that's gonna happen. We only have a couple more games, like 2. We have a game on Steam called Angry Troll Simulator 2018, which is an asset flip game. It seems like you're actually playing as an angry troll and not as an internet troll, although that might be an underlying joke. Anyways, this game is 99 cents. The idea of running around and playing as an angry troll and terrorizing a village is not a terrible thought. Unfortunately, this is just an extremely low effort game at the very least. Let's see. I'm still debating whether it's worthwhile to talk about Nutaku games, but there's a TechRaptor article, Battle in Match 3 Combat with Nutaku's Cosmic Shock League, which is a Match 3 puzzle game with anime girls in it, in different layers of undress. Looks like it's a mobile game, so in a weird way, and I'm not sure you can ever really do this, like, depending on your own personal life, and just if you never pull out your phone in public and you loved Match 3 games and you love naked anime girls, you could play this game instead of a collection of other Match 3 games that don't have that. But generally speaking, I think you just can't go that far. I'm on Nutaku's site, I'm looking at the screenshots, and it is, some of the pictures at least are full on nudity. And see, I just don't think that you can ever risk that and have that kind of game, or should have that kind of game on your phone, just on the random instance that somebody that shouldn't see that stuff picks up your phone and sees it, or looks over your shoulder and sees it. GameIndustry.biz has an article, China's new game approval process could hurt indies most, _vicarious. CEO and PR firm specializing in bringing Chinese titles to the West talks about how potential knock-on effects of the new regulatory system. This article could go on further, but basically the company Vicarious is saying that it could hurt indies the most, and I think they mean potentially Chinese indie companies the most. Although it's going to be a close second that indies from the rest of the world could suffer. It seems like everybody's going to suffer from this Chinese ban or a new approval system that has yet to approve anything. There's a quote here: as a developer within the Chinese market, you don't really need to consider another market to be successful. If you're successful within your home market, you're successful. That's possibly true, possibly not. I kind of question that a lot. That doesn't really strike me as a true statement. Because I don't really believe that that all Chinese game companies and developers can sustain themselves just on sales in China, because I don't think Chinese people have enough time and money to sustain a video game industry alone. There's another quote here that was earlier in the article. A lot of smaller publishers and developers rely on quick development and release schedules to stay afloat, and that's not possible anymore. In general, I think that pretty much means a lot of people make really bad games on Steam and put them out on sale. Let's see. Give a minion +2/+2. Summon 1/1 copy.
I comply. What is my purpose?
It might be a good thing, though, if a lot of Chinese companies go out of business, the ones that are just making really low effort games. That just may be supply and demand at a certain point. Not that I bow down and worship the concepts of supply and demand, but, you know, we certainly see it. We see it on Steam all the time that there's low quality Chinese games. There's certainly other countries' low quality games that get made too all around the world, but it seems particularly high in China. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Elderborn, which looks like it's a dungeon crawling hack and slash game. It looks pretty fast paced. Looks like a real game. It also, though, kind of seems like it might be a VR game. If this is a VR game, this is probably the best looking hack and slash dungeon crawler VR game I've seen so far. So that's something at least. Early access, 20% off for $15.99. It's not VR. No support for VR at all. Interesting. Well, I guess I'll keep this one on my wish list. Even though it's like, doesn't seem like there's anything here that would immediately point to it being bad. In fact, it looks kind of interesting. Not amazingly interesting, but sort of interesting. Right. Do this.
I comply.
Do this. And then do this.
Insects. I comply.
Do that. We're almost done. And the last game we have on our list is Lollipang VR, which looks like some kind of VR game of some sort. I'm not 100% sure what you're doing though. Just probably standing in one place and shooting at things with a candy aesthetic. Let's skip this. Skip up to a point in this trailer where you're actually playing. So there's these balloons falling, and then you have to shoot them with a bow, and then they kind of do a pachinko style scoring system. Slightly interesting idea. It's in English and Korean. and requires VR. $14.79 seems like it's not worth it at that price. And I can easily dismiss it, certainly, because it's a VR game and I don't have to worry about that.
What is my purpose?
And do that.
I comply.
And that puts me at the Humble Bundle store. So are there any new bundles? Let's see. There's a Humble Discovery Pack that's new, where you could get War for the Overworld, Osiris New Dawn, Kentucky Route Zero, Tricky Towers, Phantom Brave PC, RWBY, Grim Eclipse, Ruby, and Rooster Teeth's first subscription, 1 month for free. And that is if you pay $10 or more for it. Ugh, it's kind of expensive. I'd really have to do some investigation and see what it would cost to get like War for the Overworld, which I know has been usually a little too expensive, and Ruby has probably been a little bit expensive, and Phantom Brave PC, I'd have to double check and make sure if that was worth getting. And that's like the entire bundle. There's no other tier or anything, so they're getting completely away from the tiered idea in this bundle. Let's see. 2 + 2 Death Round. Just keep on playing. I really just want to win here. Let's see, what does that put us? Now we're pretty much done. As far as news, we can move over to Twitch and just double make sure Twitch is still airing my shows. YouTube has still not gotten back to me about the bug of Twitter not embedding things. I don't think they're probably ever going to get back to me on that, in all fairness. So that's really a thing to probably just give up on. Okay, I could silence this guy and not do enough damage to kill him, or I could do this.
I comply.
And this.
I comply.
Do that.
Is someone injured?
And so now I'm just on my Twitter feed. This will be our last game, and everything that I need to do off screen. It's not too bad, but we still are having an issue of not getting all the daily quests done, which is a slight issue. But this is a lot better than Wednesday. Okay, so over the weekend I need to get one more priest victory and do monster hunts or dungeon runs on the main account. That's not bad. I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed and it doesn't seem like anything new has happened. In fact, it seems like there's basically nothing has happened since we started streaming and we ended streaming, which is not a big surprise considering it is late in the evening on Friday. So that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, you can friend me on Steam, gift me a game or a gift card, or support me through Patreon. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.